So I try to like leave it off on a more of a prayer note, you know, just to try to encourage them, because you know I'll try to like encourage them a little, you know.
Well, what do you do, Ryan, if they say, "Well, God already told me that it's you, Ryan"? So he answered
I was
my
like,
prayer.
well, then he hasn't told me yet, so
Okay.
not to be mean, but
We gotta, yeah. Well, folks, here we are for this week's episode of The Boundless Show. I am Lisa Anderson here with you. Here we are for our roundtable. We have got our friends Morgan, Ryan, and Anneke here. Hey, y'all.
Hello.
Hi.
Good to have you. Okay, because we're going to talk about a dating-themed topic that is basically around ghosting. Now, I'm saying it's dating themed because when we think of ghosting, we always think of dating. But I think we can agree that we get ghosted in many different areas of life, and it's really annoying. And I have friends who are expert ghosters on a number of things. And so I think we can weave in some of that as well. But certainly just the general habit of dropping people. And again, there are different reasons for doing this. So this is why I want to kind of have this conversation. So first of all, let's talk about our experiences with ghosting. When you hear that term, what does it mean to you and where has it applied to you, either as the offended or the offender? Because if you're the offender, own up to it, okay? Morgan, why don't you
Confessions.
start?
I know. I was like, I must confess, I have ghosted him before. I think I've been on both sides of that coin. I have ghosted before, and I have been ghosted myself. So by people who I care about a lot and who I don't know at all. So I think it can happen with all sorts of relationships, whether you know each other really well or are just getting to know each other. So definitely both sides of that coin. Sorry.
And so what did it look like for you? I mean, when you're saying, like, is it just you're in a conversation and then the person drops or what?
That has happened before in the middle of either texting someone. And honestly, must confess, I have a friend who texted me probably 2 weeks ago asking me some questions, and I just have not responded yet. So hopefully by the time this airs, we will be back at it. But typically it's, at least in my experience, I think it's just been over text message or in a dating app situation. So never really like, hey, see you later, and then never heard from them again. Yeah.
That is true, because it's a lot easier to respond to a text that says, how much do I owe you for the pizza versus I have 7 questions that I need you to address and go, that's a lot. Okay, that's like a part-time job. Okay. Ryan, how about you?
On dating apps, I have experienced that, and I've also experienced it, and I've also dealt it, you know. I was like, I was just explaining to both of them, like, outside the room, like, like, there's a person who I'm talking to, and I keep forgetting to reply to them. It's been, like you said, like a couple of weeks, and I'm like, you're on my list, I just gotta get there, I'm sorry. I was just like, and then I've also had friends who I've messaged, and they haven't replied to me in, like, months, and then they, you know, about half a year later, they're like, oh, I just got your message. I'm like, I messaged you like 6 months ago. So just like, I was just like, and I messaged you again and again and again, and you still don't respond. So so I've experienced it in both, you know.
So we're gonna have to circle back to this, because on the dating app, are you talking to just that many people that you have to get to someone because you're like, of the 17 people I'm currently in communication with. So we might have to drill down into that a little more, because I'm going to ask you, because I'm like, clearly if you want to be talking to this person, you're going to find a way to be talking to them. So somehow there has to be
I'm usually talking to them. They just don't respond to me. It's just like, I'm like, oh, well, you know, okay. So
so whether or not you have to reach out again or
so I've reached out a second time, and sometimes they respond to that. If not, then I'm just like, okay, well, I'll give you like a few days, and if you don't respond, then I'm just gonna just unfriend you, you know, or remove you from the list of people.
It shows that there's consequences.
I can't ignore people. I can't wait forever either. I'm like, is there anything here? It seems like there's nothing here. So
Okay, Anneke.
I haven't had experience with like the dating apps. It kind of scares me, but yes, I have it on both ends of the the coin, I guess you said. But the most prominent example that I think of is in like the friendship context with like one of my best friends. I was in her wedding, and I think this happens more frequently than it's talked about with young couples who get married and then like fall off the face of the earth. But and then like messages me, 10 months later, I have a baby. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow. So anyway,
Wow.
that is one,
Okay.
pretty major ghosting example. But then also, of course, in like dating context, you're talking to someone and then
Yeah.
they fall off and you're like, okay, message received.
Yeah.
But I would say I've been the offender.
Well, and it's interesting because I think we can agree that if we were having this conversation with like our parents, this would be foreign to them, because when you're having conversations and or dating IRL, y'all, you can't just walk away from a person without being super rude.
Right.
So clearly the digital convenience of choosing when to be in conversation with someone or when to pick up a conversation or when to drop it has kind of precipitated a lot of bad habits in this way. I mean, have you seen like how social media, texting, some of these other platforms have made it harder, and what about that frustrates you?
Yeah, I mean, just going back to even my parents' example, my parents lived in 2 different towns when they met and started dating. So as soon as they decided there was a little interest there, it was a lot of pursuit and intention right off the bat. And sure, both people had their own circles with people that they also thought were attractive in their own cities, but it took intention and deciding they wanted to pursue that, right in that moment. And I think with social media and all these dating apps, even like, I feel like the idea of options is just so exploding. Like, if someone doesn't like me on one social media, whatever, doesn't follow me back, maybe it's on a different dating app that I'll find them or find someone else or find someone cuter, but the idea that
They're
there's
so
just
elusive.
just can't pin them down. But I think it's just wow, there's so many options these days to decide who you want to spend time with or talk to more or give a little chance to. It's so easy to decide maybe not, I think, because
Fear of a better option.
Oh, that's good.
And it kind of puts us in a prideful place of like saying, even though we don't want to admit it, like, okay, show me what you got. If you're interesting enough for me, if you have enough
Market
to say,
yourself.
if you're gonna, it's like really weird. You got to do your own PR campaign or something to be responded to. I don't know. Any other thoughts about the digital space and how it's kind of tripped us up?
Well, on the opposite end of like your parents' dating experience, where it's like mutual pursuit, then it just the digital and the social media where you're, safe behind a screen. You don't have to see the effects of, you hurting someone. It's so easy to be avoidant, and that just like, perpetuates passivity, which we can all agree is like a huge deal in this dating landscape, I think.
Absolutely. I mean, you just said a moment ago, Anneke, like not responding or ghosting, like I got you. That's still clear communication.
Right.
It's
You're
not
still sending a message without sending a message.
Yes. Yes, that's wild.
Yeah. So what does it look like to do this differently? I think it's funny because even as we were talking, you were saying, Morgan, about your parents and, we're actually going to have to meet. We're going to have to figure out how to make this happen. I mean, I remember talking with it was a friend's grandparents or something who he was in a war and literally wrote her a letter every day. And I'm like, how are you fighting a war and still writing letters? I mean, just the way
if he
people
wanted to, he would.
But obviously the way that we have cannibalized our time with a lot of weirdness and a lot of just pointless, probably, pursuits, I think we could all tell on ourselves related to that, shows that healthy communication in dating and beyond is possible. And honestly, I think that if you're a healthy communicator, it only adds to your value in the dating market because people are generally so poor at it. Okay.
The bar is low.
Very, very low. It is low. Okay, so let's talk about this in terms of what would it look like to do this better. So, for example, when I wrote the dating manifesto, because I was so wrapped up in this and did it so poorly, and I had so many people ask me about this, I remember writing a script for turning someone down after a first date so that you didn't have to say,
we've all done that.
Thanks so much, but I
down.
think I'm going to date Jesus, or I decided I have the gift of singleness, or making up some ridiculous excuse, but just to say no thank you. And so have any of you seen this work well? Who is the ninja in your life in this space who actually can cut off conversation in a respectful way, who can continue conversation in a way that makes you realize, not string you along and stuff? I mean, how have you seen this done well?
Oh,
Everyone's
man, I
shaking their heads
know.
like, well, I don't think so.
I don't want to toot my own horn.
Oh, yeah. Anneka's pretty
the
good, I
letdown
guess.
scripts. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, you're good at it.
Yeah, my like favorite line is, "I don't want to waste your time,"
Oh,
because
okay.
I don't want to waste my time. Like at this point in our lives, we can agree, like we're looking to get married.
Yeah.
You want to see if you're compatible with someone and a
Yeah.
partner. And so you go on a couple dates and you get the sense it's not going to work out. Then why waste time and string them along? And that's
Yeah.
just disrespectful to them
Yeah.
and disrespectful to you. So.
That's so good. Mine's a little similar. Mine is, thank you. I appreciated your time going out with you. I don't see this going anywhere.
Yeah.
And saying that and just being honest about it. And
Yeah.
but thank you. I appreciate you.
I usually throw a little bit of prayer in there as well, for the person. Like, hey, like, thank you for your time, but I don't think that this is where, that this is the direction that I want to, go in or continue to pursue. I said, but I will be praying, that God leads whoever it is that He is, trying to lead you to. I pray that He would lead that person to you. So I try to leave it off on a more of a prayer note, just to try to encourage them, because I'm trying to encourage them a little,
But what do you do, Ryan, if they say, well, God already told me that it's you, Ryan, so He answered
I was
my
like,
prayer.
well, then he hasn't told me yet, so
Okay.
not to be mean, but
You gotta,
You're
you have to
indwelt with the
shut it
same
down.
spirit.
that's right. I
So-
think you're on talking to somebody else. It's just like,
So funny.
yeah.
Okay.
Oh,
But yeah,
I
I always
feel
try
like-
to end with some kind of prayer.
Yeah.
That's
So,
good.
mhm.
That's good. And do you actually follow up with praying for that person?
Oh no, I do. Like
Yeah.
after I say it, I always pray for that person because I know I'll forget.
Yeah.
So if I don't do it after I, text it out and write it to the person, I'll forget to do it. So I try to make a mental note to do it right away after I send this. I need to pray for that person.
That's good.
So yeah.
That's good.
Okay.
That's acceptable.
Morgan, what has worked for you?
Oh,
Where
man.
have you seen this
I
go
am
well?
gonna confess and probably embarrass myself. I am so bad at that. I'm so
Yeah.
bad at it. This summer I hung out with a guy for a little bit. So much fun, and both of us were like, "Yeah, let's do it again." And then we both just kind of stopped talking to each other, and I was like, "That feels good." That was okay with me. And then another time, I was hard to pin down. No, he couldn't figure out what my schedule was. And then he was just like, you know what? This is too hard. See you later. So I think my honest error is I make it hard to go out again. And it's not cute, guys. I'm
Yeah.
just realizing this. But it's hard for me to be honest and clear. And that is the kind thing to do. So that's a confession. Yikes. I was not expecting to say that today.
No,
But
that's good though,
Thank
because
you
that
for
just
sharing.
I think there's growth for all of us in
Oh,
that.
yeah.
Because I would say, the whole reason by the time I came around to writing the dating manifesto was I had my background was littered with terrible experiences of breakups and just bad endings and ghosting and all kinds of stuff that was just ridiculous. So, okay, so what is a scenario where it is acceptable to ghost someone? Or is it different based on different levels of connection or how long you've been talking to the person or seeing the person? What would you feel is expected of you in different scenarios?
yeah, I think if you haven't hung out in person and aren't actually face-to-face friends, I don't think, and maybe this is only me because I probably do this more than I should, but I don't think there's an obligation to not be kind. I'm not saying that, but if this person keeps talking to you and you don't send the message, I'm so sorry, this isn't working out, and just don't respond, it's not kind and it's not the nice thing to do, but I think that's okay. I think, obviously, I think it's okay because I do it myself. But
justifying
yeah,
yourself.
and if I
You're
am,
open, yeah.
please argue if that is wrong. But I think if you haven't met someone, it's overwhelming how much people have access to your time and your space and your thoughts and your feelings. And if I don't want someone to have access anymore, I could shut that down or I could just delete it. And I probably do the latter before I give context and clarity more often. So not ideal, but I think if you have too much access right away, then I don't love that. So
it seems like it would be more of a practical solution to say something.
Yeah.
Because otherwise this guy is going to be, he's going to be setting his calendar reminders of like, I'm going to circle back in 5 days and see what she, so you did your part in saying, hey, for me, this is just over. Thanks for your time, whatever.
Yeah.
And then you don't need to respond again if they keep prodding you or whatever. But I think just for clarity's sake, it's sometimes helpful to just say, I said my piece.
Yeah.
And
being clear
please
is
refer
kind.
to the paragraph below where I said this 4 days ago.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
The root cause of ghosting is like you're overwhelmed or you're annoyed or you're scared, and outside of that, I can't think of a scenario in which I would ghost someone, but acceptable scenarios that I would say is, obviously there's that spectrum of, acquaintance, like, it was hurtful when my friend ghosted me because we were really good friends, but if you're just like, gave this guy your number and you've never hung out with him before, then it's like, do you have an obligation? Maybe not.
Probably.
But like acceptable situations I can think of is like if you have already set an established boundary with someone, like an ex or something, and they keep, hounding you. It's like ghost them, block them. That's great.
Gotta block and walk away.
Especially if you're like, oh, like I'm kind of scared of being stalked or something like that.
That's definitely appropriate.
That's like the one that comes to mind.
Yeah, I was thinking of like in a toxic relationship, like that could be, and you actually already mentioned that a little bit, about just like if the guy or girl or whoever your friend is like just tearing you down in texts or just like always just obnoxious when you're around him, or they're always drinking and you're like, I just don't like this lifestyle that you're living because like one, that I'm a Christian and I love Jesus, so just like I want to glorify him, but I don't want to be in this type of environment, and you keep inviting me every time, and that I don't enjoy this type of thing. I think it's okay to like after you said, just to make your peace, I think that it's okay, like just like if he keeps messaging you, just block him, don't respond anymore, because I was like, one, it's not going to encourage you. Two, it's going to hurt you, and three, it doesn't glorify God as well. I was like, I think in those aspects, it's okay, because I think Jesus did that with the Pharisees as well. Just like, it's where he's like, guys, I'm telling you that this is the way to like heaven and you don't want to accept it. So I'm just going to just, I'll talk, with you if you approach me, but I'm not going to go out of my way to like, approach that person and to like follow up, with them and things like that. So I was just thinking that's kind of,
it's interesting because it could be a similar scenario, which is even less like, it doesn't have to get as dire or as extreme as like a person with just really toxic behaviors. I think of a friend of mine who's done a preemptive conversation on a lot of things, so that keeps her from having to ghost people or being tempted to. And so for one example, she just doesn't like game nights, and so a group of friends that is always planning game nights, she headed it off at the pass and just said, hey y'all, not into game nights, please take me off this trail and I will do other things with you, but not these. Okay. And it was just so helpful because instead, she could have just spent months and months of getting all these game night texts. And then she's like, well, I severed an arm and so I can't come, or just coming up with dumb, or feeling bad or whatever. And she was just honest from the get-go. And then it's not directed to any one person. So no one takes it personally. It's just kind of like, this is the way it is, and she's even done that with friends, really close friends, where she's also a person who is very quick to say yes to stuff and then realizes she's very introverted. She has a very low energy level. And so she'll get to a Friday night and she'll just say, y'all, if you'll just give me the freedom to maybe back out if it's not something I'm responsible for, or I'm not contributing, and then people are like, yeah, do that. So then when she says, oh, okay, yeah, I just can't, I don't have it in me tonight, it's again, not everyone's like devastated, like we never saw this coming. Yeah. I think that's just helpful. Kind of as we finish out here, you guys, what would be other advice that you have, whether for yourself or others, in doing this better, in recognizing ghosting, in not choosing to contribute to it, in finding other ways to engage with people, so that like Morgan, you can
I'm
figure out.
I'm listening, guys.
You can figure out how to not have these first dates that never become second dates because these guys can't find you, whatever, with your busy schedule and whatnot. But what does it look like as we ponder this to kind of show up better in these kinds of relationships?
I love the idea. I know. Here I go. I love the idea of just setting a clear boundary, because I think I set them in my mind and I don't communicate them well.
Mm-hmm.
So whether that's, hey, I'm not comfortable with X, Y, and Z, or I'm not interested in these types of hangouts type of thing. And then also sticking to my guns, because I love that story of your friend in game nights. I have friends who love going to the zoo. You will never catch me there. You will just not catch me there. And I remember they went around my birthday this last year, and I was so hurt. And then I was like, wait, I don't even like the zoo.
Yeah.
Why am I so annoyed by that? So I think, this is a good conversation for me to listen in, obviously. But to be able to set a boundary and stick to it, I think is good. And make sure I communicate that boundary.
Well, and because it almost makes you more interesting, because it shows, it's a little insight into Morgan doesn't like zoos.
Don't take me there.
I mean, shocking that you don't like going into the penguin enclosure and fighting for your life with the smells. Yeah, it's just, I'm shocked by that. But that is helpful just to know that's almost a quirky thing of like zoos, hard pass. Definitely we'll go on a run with you though.
Yes, please.
Or play pickleball.
Yes, please.
Yeah, she's all over that. So
good. Thank
other advice.
I think about it, as Christians, we're called to be intentional about everything we do, and so if you're, talking to like 30 people, you can't handle that because you don't have the emotional bandwidth, then that's not like an intentional way to go about relationships, and like you said before, like clarity is kind, whether you're the guy or the girl, and so either setting those boundaries verbally or saying, even if you're like in a relationship and be like, hey, I'm not really comfortable with like how quick this is going, or the direction, and like setting those expectations, it just all around prevents the necessity to ghost, because that's what we feel like. It's like there's no other option, I just have to ghost them.
No, so true.
Yeah, don't ghost. Just don't do it.
Podcast over.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, I don't know.
No,
caveats.
I think be upfront with the person. Like pretty much what you guys have all been saying. Especially on the dating app, like if there's nothing there, don't keep dragging it on. It's like because people do it a lot and they just want to just talk to somebody sometimes. I'm like, okay, so I'm just like
they're your plan E.
Yeah. It's like, they have like a plan A, a plan B, and I was like, where do I fall in this?
Yeah.
So I'm just
how many letters are in the alphabet?
Right. Am I down here like Z? So I'm just like, but it's just like, just to be upfront, I think that's, honesty is the best thing.
Yeah.
So,
I think this is helpful, maybe especially for the ladies. Ladies, maybe you'll have to hit us up on social and let us know if in your deepest heart of hearts you would want to hear this too. But I have asked so many guys over the years, just straight up the question, like, how would you like to be turned down? And every guy to one has said, I just want to be told the truth straight out.
Yep.
Don't beat around the bush. Don't make up stupid stuff. Don't leave me hanging. And women never do it because we're people pleasers who can't stand hurting someone's feelings, and we say the dumbest stuff. And so, I think Ryan is concurring here.
The guys just want to just give it to us. Like,
just tell
we can take it. We'll deal with it for like a couple hours, and then we'll be over it.
And then they'll go out. They'll get some Chipotle. They'll hang out with some friends. They'll find someone else to talk to.
We'll go to the gym, like you said.
There you go.
We'll go to the gym.
It's all good. It's all good. So I think that's just helpful for us to start doing that. And kind of, Anneke, to your point, Scripture says, let your yes be yes and your no be no. And we owe it to people to honor people with our responses and all that. So even in dating, even with weirdos online, okay?
They're still people.
Weirdos.
They still have
weirdos are made in the image of God.
Right.
Let's acknowledge that. So thank you guys so much.
Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you.